So last episode, we dived into, well, Mekanism. Just a little bit, just enough to get a quarry up and running and start generating a little bit of passive power. And today, I think it's going to be a good time to start to switch our storage and sort of change directions from the kind of storage that we have right now and try to move it into applied energistics. Now, you may be wondering, at the time of this recording, as this may change in the future, refined storage is not updated at the moment. So there is no refined storage in this pack. Honestly, I would probably go refined storage this go around if it was in here, but in this current version of the pack, all I have to really go with is applied energistics. However, there's a ton of add-ons for applied energistics in here, and well, it's going to be pretty fun also getting to experience all of the new textures that are now a part of this mod. And speaking of textures, if you go into your options and resource packs, you're going to find a couple of different types of textures here. You have the light mode and you have the black mode. I definitely recommend the blackout mode if you're already kind of playing around with that dark theme, which is definitely what I'm going with my GUI. And all you have to do to enable it is turn it on, and then of course, reload your textures. Now, getting into AE means adventure at first. We are going to be doing quite a bit of adventuring and kind of getting started with this mod by simply finding a meteorite. And the easiest way to find this is by making a meteorite compass, which requires us to use a charger. So like I said, if these textures look a little bit different than what you're seeing, it's because I'm using that darker texture pack, which is also, it's just a part of AE really. So it's all of these basically converted into dark or light mode. I will say the default mode is very, very bright in my opinion. And yeah, so I'm going to be going kind of back and forth here. But this is the charger and we do need a hand crank. This is how we would get it started. But I think we could just use a regular charger as well, as it should accept any sort of power, including something, for example, from like this generator here. You can use a hand crank on the top though, which is kind of hilarious. So a compass. So just a regular plain Jane compass. We should be able to get that done. And we place this in here, and then that should convert with a little bit of power into a meteor compass. Now, I haven't stumbled upon a meteor just yet, so having this is very, very nice. Now, it looks like the one that's in my actual hand isn't the one pointing in the appropriate direction, but it does look like this one is pointing in a direction. Actually, it's really hard to tell if they are pointing at all. The one in my inventory looks like it's just pointing due north, like perfect north. No, it's actually not. So I think it's the one in my inventory is the one that's actually pointing to the direction. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the one that is in my hand is actually pointing at all. So I'm going to follow wherever this one takes me, but it shouldn't be too hard to recognize a meteor or a meteorite. So this did change directions quite abruptly. And this might actually be one that's underground because I know they can spawn underground. Oh yeah, it does look like this one might be underground. I would prefer to find one though that's directly above the ground. So to be able to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep flying in one direction here or boating. It depends on whatever you're doing until this actually resets and then starts to link to something new, which it does look like it did. Oh wait, and now the one in my hand seems like it's also pointing in a different direction. They're all pointing in different directions. This one's now pointing over here. I mean, in the meantime, I mean, I might as well take a look at whatever this is. Ooh, there's loot. There's loot. Oh, also enemies. And they have bones in their mouth. Oh my goodness, they are quite strong. I don't know if I'm 100% ready to just be diving in here. I don't have, no, my gear's not enchanted, nothing. Oh boy, that I took a lot of damage there. Ooh. Yeah, you know what? I'll come back to that later. While I'm here, might as well grab some cactus. And what exactly is this structure? I'm like looking for, ooh. What are you? Are you from Irons? This is from Eternal Starlight. This guy looks, are you a friendly? Oh, look, I've been noticing without a weary look in your eyes. I hear a creeper, by the way. Oh, that's a bunny. Whew. I'll have to come back to this. That looks kind of cool. So this, I think, is it's its own dimension mod, which will be pretty nice to do. By the way, I am going to grab a bunny. Definitely want this guy. Hey, get over here. I need a bunny to add to our list of things. There we go. Aha. And while doing this, it looks like it did change its direction again. And this one, I actually can see on the map. Ah, yes. Okay, so yeah, this is definitely pointing here, and this is what we're looking for. There's glass everywhere, and the cool thing is we should be able to dive right down into this, and we should be able, and I keep saying should be because you never know, but down in here there should be some fantastic stuff for us, which is going to help us just immediately jumpstart into this. Let's turn the hammer mode on. Takes a long time to mine this. Oh wow, this thing is actually deep, isn't it? Okay, let's just mine straight down. Aha! Here we are. Oh, and I guess we already broke the thing. There was a container here, unknown technology, and whenever you break it, you actually get all of the inscribers that we're going to need to get into this mod. And we even get a guidebook. Now, we didn't get super lucky. We don't have any like Certus that's like fully developed. But this right here, oh, let's make sure to actually turn our auto smelt off. This is going to give us some Certus dust, which is going to be nice. Now, this says damaged, chipped. This is flawed, chipped, damaged, flawless. This is chipped, damaged, and this is flawless. So these two flawlesses are actually kind of important. And there is a way, I believe, for me to transfer these from here back into our base where we would never have to worry about needing to improve these by dropping them in water and stuff. So these are actually pretty nice in themselves. So what we can do is just grab them as they are blocks. And the cool part is once they degrade all the way, they turn into just regular Certus quartz. So it's a quick way of kind of just getting some Certus quartz. But these two blocks are the ones that are really important to me. So I did make a cut paste tool, and I think we can use the cut paste gadget on this. So you go to cut mode, and then I'm going to right click and then shift right click. And this is going to select this area. And if I go to cut, we can now cut these, and they're stored inside of our cut paste gadget. And I should be able to paste them wherever I want. So yeah, and then I can place these back down, by the way, continue to break them until they fully degrade. And that's going to grant me, like I said, more Certus. And it's also another way to get quite a bit of Certus early on. Beautiful. Now, on my way back, I found this little village here, and I have no idea what this is outside of a iron spell sort of village. But something I did notice is this burning building up here, and what drew my eye to it was this chest. And this is all good, right? It's kind of nice that we have this chest, but I noticed something. This. Now, this thing right here is honestly kind of crazy to find in the overworld, and I didn't know you could even find this in the overworld. So this must be new. Now, you can find a structure of armor piles inside of the nether. And yeah, it may just kind of go right past you. Oh, it's nothing, but it's actually something. So this one thing being here is kind of ridiculous. And so all I'm going to have to do to get this is to break it, and then I'm going to use my creature catcher to catch it. This thing drops netherite scrap, and we can farm it with the Drigme, or at least we should be able to. It's just very scary, because once you break it, this guy will spawn, and he is very dangerous. But we just caught an ancient knight, and that is so powerful. Now, inside this building, it looks like there's a whole structure down here. Oh, and there's another person over here. You know what? I bet that we could also catch this guy if we don't get like one tapped. And we could potentially farm this in the Drigme as well. Oh, goodness. And I have no idea what this is. It's a pyromancer. Okay, so yes. As if these weren't powerful enough, we just caught two mobs that should essentially allow us to farm a lot more iron spell stuff. And that's when it really becomes powerful, because iron spells is quite grindy in the fact that you have to farm up runes. But now if that pyromancer actually drops runes, then we are going to be set. In the back room here, I did find some vampiric gloves. That's going to be nice as well. Definitely grab some of those. And it looks like nothing else super great here. There is a couple of chests over here. It's got Blaze Storm in that one. There's a blank runestone. These are the things I was talking about, by the way. It does look like they drop from the Dead King, so this might be one of the only things they drop from. But unfortunately, we can't see the drop pools for things like the mob that we just caught, the Pyromancer. Yeah, this is going to feel incredibly powerful. Oh man, farming these guys. So I'm going to put the Mancer up here, and if this just also makes the Drigmies even faster. Just by the more things we have in here, the more things it will farm, the faster it will be, the happier they will be. Oh, it's just so good. But we should start to see scrap, netherite scrap, actually building up if this actually is farmable. Now, if you remember getting into Applied Energistics in the past, for the most part, everything has still stayed the same. But something that I will mention, no longer do you mine for Certus quartz. Instead, you farm it from those blocks that we ended up copying. Now, there is a way that you can automate the production of the ones if you do not have the flawless ones, but in my case, I'm going to be utilizing these flawless ones. So let's go ahead and actually get started with this. So we still have to charge our Certus quartz. We can place this in, it will then be charged, and we can pop it back out. Beautiful. And then we're going to use the charge versions to actually make Fluix. So Fluix is an in-world transformation where we toss the charged redstone and nether quartz into a source of water, and we end up getting these crystals back. Now, we don't have the method that you may be familiar with in the past where you're able to like take these and duplicate them. That's no longer the case. You don't make seeds and then grow the seeds anymore. So that's kind of been all removed, that whole redundancy thing. And now we just have this, which is pretty nice, by the way, because you can use a hopper. So let's go ahead and put this in here. You can use a hopper, and there's a lot of cool add-on mods in here that also allow this process to be even faster. So I want all of these to be charged, and the hopper will only pull out once the product is done. So once we have the actual product. And you can see the charges are building up. Beautiful. And once we have all of these, we can then convert them in water. Now, since Certus isn't something that we can just mine, we're kind of limited on it. So that's going to be one of the first things that I want to get started in producing. Now, the goal is to definitely have Applied Energistics automate it, but we can also automate it ourselves here. We just need a few things, and those few things also require Fluix. Now, I'm going to keep one of these to the side for now, because I think we need one for the crystal and resonance generator, which I'm going to explain here in a minute, which is a pretty cool block, by the way. But we should be able to make ourselves the growth accelerator, which is the main thing I definitely want to go after. Now, in some water, I'm going to toss these ingredients in, and they should all combine together and do a little bit of an explosion there. And we get the unnatural. Beautiful. And so now we have 22 of those, essentially doubling the amount that we have. Now we do have some nice machines set up, so I can actually pulverize these Certuses here inside of a crushing factory. And this is going to make processing this down much, much quicker. But there is another way that we can actually get this Certus quartz dust, and that is through an inscriber. We're going to be getting into these here in a second, but the inscriber doesn't really have any major requirements. It's all just your standard vanilla items. I think before even touching the inscriber, if you don't have a way of generating Certus quartz, I definitely recommend making a growth accelerator as soon as possible, which is what I'm actually working on here. I'm going to get the quartz fiber set up, and then I'm going to get my Fluix cables. And then the first thing I'm going to make is a growth accelerator. This thing is a must. And not just one, we are definitely going to need more than one, but for right now, one is going to get us started. Now, I do want to semi-automate this, so I went ahead and enchanted this pick, took a couple of rolls, and also a failed one, which I do have one in here. If I take a look, a diamond pickaxe that I did roll silk touch on. I kind of want to keep this for maybe another sort of use, but we can combine this with a blank module, and this is pretty cool because it actually carries over the enchants onto the module. And this is going to be for modular routers. So we should essentially be able to use this breaker module inside of modular routers with filtering, by the way, on what block it's actually going to break. And it will apply this fortune effect to it. And it's also unbreakable. Like the module just doesn't break. It doesn't have durability. So let's go ahead and make our crystal resonant generator. And this is pretty cool. It essentially gives power, just free power. And it tells you in the guide, I have mine set to W, but it's by default set to G to open this guide up. And you can see it's just going to generate 20 AE per tick. Now you can only have one per network, but you can use these on subnets. So if you need a direct subnet power, this is free power essentially, and should keep most things running at its lowest power. Now, let's go ahead and put this on our growth accelerator. This is where this is going to get kind of cool. So we are going to have our crystal resonance on the growth accelerator, and the growth accelerator can speed up crops, and it can also speed up the buds. That also goes for amethyst buds as well, but it can also do it for these. So all we have to do is place this down. Now I am going to cut this one. So I'm going to go back to cut mode, and I'm going to just cut this one for now. And we're only going to worry about this one. Now, it does say 0 AE, and I wonder if this has to be connected to something else. Like, does it actually have to be connected to a cable or a quartz fiber or something like that? The quartz fiber, no, but it should be connected to a cable, I think. It does feel kind of weird that it is not powered at all. Let's try that. Oh, there it goes. I seen a spark, and it is sparking, which means it is online. It just doesn't show that it has any stored power. But notice what it's doing. It is actually growing this thing, and we are getting buds growing faster. This thing works, and the more of these you have, the faster it goes. So this is pretty darn cool on its own, and is a good way to definitely get more of these. Now, if you break these before they are fully ready, you'll notice that you actually get Certus dust. So it's a good way to farm Certus dust and also farm the full actual Certus crystal. And I think doing the breaker is going to be the best way to kind of do this. However, I'm not sure, as I have not tested this, I'm not sure if the breaker module, for example, if fortune actually affects these buds. But let's go and get this set up. So I'll place this here, and then in the module, we'll go ahead and say work on the front, and it says match dropped items. This is a good way to actually manage things, but you can go with the block form. If you go with the dropped items, the cool part is we can say, hey, give us only Certus Quartz Crystal, and it's going to wait till this is fully grown. But if we wanted the actual Certus Quartz Dust, which by the way, we need to set that to whitelist. If we wanted the Certus Quartz Dust, and we assign this, it's going to break this whenever it's in its small form. I mean, honestly, there's only one way to test this, and that's by just simply putting this in here, and we'll notice that did break the stuff, and it put the broke item into this buffer, which is very, very handy. So this is just going to wait for it to grow, and it's just going to constantly keep breaking it. It would be ideal to have, like I said, more growth accelerators around this, because the idea would be to speed up this top one and make it incredibly fast. But yeah, this is 100% working. We already have 2 in there. And the cool part is if you're doing it on the actual Certus Quartz Dust side of things, you can convert Certus Quartz Dust into full Certus. The process on doing that just involves you charging up at least one of the Certus that you currently have, and then tossing the 2 into water. So let's go ahead and, for example, charge some Certus, and then we can turn this dust into full Certus. So yeah, I would say early on, it's probably best just to farm it in its low form, as you're going to have a higher chance of getting it. And we can take this now, and you see we have 4 and 4. And if I put this in the water here, that 4 and 4 will then turn into just, it should be 8 regular Certus. So let that process. Of course, I got to turn my magnet off. There we go. Just like so. Perfect. It all split apart. And this is just nice tips like for getting started here. And all of that ended up turning into 8. So now I've got these crafted up, which is very nice. And we should be able to just connect them, I believe. Oh, that's right. These have to be turned on their side still to be able to connect. That's very interesting. So they do have a side or an orientation. Here, let me go ahead and kind of demonstrate this. We place these cables like so, and then we can place this on its side, and then they will connect. Oh, that's why it wasn't connecting to this before, because this now will have to go connected directly to this cable in order to power them all. Perfect. Okay, but is this going to be enough power? Because they're not, it says device offline. So yeah, I'm assuming this is definitely not enough power at this point. Okay, so actually connecting directly to this with a generator seems to be working just fine. Now, something interesting to note also about using generators, Applied Energistics now is very accepting of RF power. So no longer do you need to use like a energy acceptor to kind of send your power into your networks. I know that controllers in the past accepted that kind of power, but this right here is just a good example of that. Now most things work with RF power. Something else to note, this is now going quick. It's going significantly faster. We could make it even faster by putting it underneath here. Something else to note that this also works with farms. So this will work with a crop that is positioned here. Now, actually, only this one was working and this one was working. It does look like the power just isn't enough to power these two. So I did put another coal generator over here, and all of the power is now being diverted here. And we can see we're generating 60, so it's about 120 RF per tick to kind of run these growth accelerators. But once we get it up and running, we will have so much Certus. And so now we're going to be able to see the true power of this. So I went ahead and set up a functional storage drawer up top, and we have a cinder that's just sending up top. And every time this breaks, that fortune is really applying, and we're actually getting more than like 1 or 2 off of the full Certus growth. And it's definitely growing pretty quick. Now, just in case you can't get your hands on fortune like I did with the enchanting, keep in mind that once you make a Fluix pick, it does have fortune 1 on it, which will also enhance how much you get. So yeah, it's got an innate fortune 1 built into that pickaxe. So I guess it's the moment of truth. Basically, we can convert this setup right here, and we can go ahead and completely turn it into applied energistics. So we'd be changing out our terminal and we'd be changing out our import here, but we wouldn't have to modify our storage controller in any way. Or I can make terminals. We have to make our presses and get our inscribers set up. But inscribers are so much easier to do now. It's really hard to explain the difference. So these inscribers no longer have a single item limit. They can now hold a stack of items. So we have our silicon press that can go in here. And by the way, this is what the GUI looks like while you're inside of all of these machines, right? So this is the dark mode. The light mode is white, kind of white with some purple in it. But this is the way this looks. This dark mode also makes all of these machines look dark too, which I really like. But now anyways, that's besides the point. Right here, I have my silicon, which is going to go there. I like to set these up in a very specific way. I like to have my logic press, which is gold, that goes here. Next is going to be the engineering, which is diamond, I do believe. I get those confused. Yeah, diamond. And then I like to do calculation, which is Certus, which is going to go right here. And then the final one is actually where we finish and finalize our processes. Now, there's a lot of cool information that we have right here that we'll talk about a little bit later. But the main thing is that by default, they can store a single stack in one go. That is so much nicer than in the past. Now, there is something I kind of want to try out. I'm going to pull this breaker module out of here, and I want to try the dire breaker, this thing right here, and I want to try breaking this Certus. So we are going to need silicon, and if I put this tool in here, I need to make sure that it's just got auto smelt on, and if I put this in here, it should break this. And what it's going to do, it's going to utilize that auto smelt, and it's going to give me the smelted silicon. So just me standing here for a little bit is going to grant me that silicon. Now, the items dropping on the ground, well, Dire also has us covered here with an item collector that is able to collect these drops. So we just need somewhere to store them. So I'm just going to store this into a barrel. And what we should be able to do is place a barrel down, place the item collector, and anything the item collector collects will go into the barrel. And then we just need to set our range. So the way we do that is we render the area. We can see it's directly above here, and we start to manipulate this a little bit. It's by changing like the offset, for example. And it is a little bit hard to sort of see at first because we have no way of making this GUI look different, but we do know we want it to go down like that. And we just kind of play with this a little bit, right? And then we put it right there. So that should collect all of the items that happen to drop right there. And it's pretty quick. Like, it happens very fast. And it even has a pretty cool particle animation as the particles sort of head over here. Now, this is going to take durability off of my tool, and I only want to let this run for a little bit. You can see those particles happening. But what I should be able to do now is take this over here and show you that you can just put the entire stack in here and just let it work. Now, I'm going to need some cables, and I'm just going to run the power directly into the back through our main power setup, and this is all going to work as well. Like I said, all of the power connected in is beautiful. I tell you what, the quality of life in these mods have just gotten so good over the years. Now, the big thing is going to be essentially waiting for our silicon to process up, but everything else we can go ahead and have in stock. and we can go ahead and get our diamonds in here, and we can get all of these things processing up. A big one being Certus crystals, which is very, very nice early on, as it allows us to make accelerator cards to speed this up even faster. Now, like I said, as soon as I get these starting to process up, calculation processors are my favorite thing to have up and running, simply because, like I said, we get to speed this inscriber setup faster. Right now it's super manual. This will be automated later on, but this manual process, I want it to go a bit smoother, and of course doing this is going to make it so. So what we're going to be making, it's going to use some diamonds, but we're going to be making some advanced cards, and each one of these advanced cards costs, well, the diamonds and also the processor. But keep in mind, each of these can hold 4 of these acceleration cards. So yeah, kind of do the math, 4 times 5. So 20 of these is going to be what we're going to be working with. And I did not intentionally do this, but we have just enough for 20. The way that we turn this into acceleration cards is another super simple thing. It's just Fluix. That's all we have to add to it is Fluix. And we get all of these acceleration cards. And these are going to be super useful later on down the road, but they're even more useful in my opinion early game, especially if you got a little bit of the power. We're using free power right now, so it totally makes sense to get these up and running. And you can see once we have these running, look how much faster this is processing these parts. So beautiful. We now have all of our basic processors all processed up. I recommend making just a stack of them if you have the ability to. It's going to really, really help ramp up how quickly you can get started with this. Now, while crafting all of this, I will say something that's going to take a bit for me to get used to are all of these new textures. It's really hard for my brain to kind of go, oh yeah, this is something totally different. And the looks, the models, everything has been changed from the last time I have played with it. So all of this is going to be kind of a learning experience, trying to figure out, and it feels so much slower trying to go through here as I'm very unfamiliar with like the formation and annihilation cores, for example. Very, very hard to kind of tell these two apart, considering they kind of rainbow their colors together. So yeah, without like this actually is very hard to tell the difference between, simply because of they both have rainbow in them, but their color, they rotate through the same kind of colors. This rotates through green, right? It does not. So this is yellow and red, and this is blue and green, it looks like. But still, that rotation of color is hard for me to determine. Anyways, I've got to go through this. I've got to find the illuminated panels. There we go. And I'm going to make some terminals. And once we have a terminal, I mean, we're basically starting. Now, I recommend, if you can do it, going straight to the ME crafting terminal. And so now we have the ability to craft. And I'm putting all of this stuff in my inventory because we do have a lot of quests, it looks like, that are in the works here. Man, we get a lot of processors here. A lot of bonuses it looks like we get for doing this. Ooh, we get random rewards as well. Whatever this crystal is, I have no idea. Probably from an add-on mod. And yeah, so definitely check your quests. And I've gone ahead and like auto-completed most of these things, which has been very nice. Now we're also going to need a storage bus, and this is going to kind of act like this this little controller that we have down here, or the storage interface, in the same sort of network that we have here. It's going to be very, very similar. Now, this is really all we need. We just need this, and we also need that power source that we made from Applied Energistics. And outside of that, we should have everything. So this is actually going to power our little system that we're going to have. This should be more than enough power. We can get by with a regular Fluix cable. And so let's go ahead and break this down. Like, this is going to really just replace everything that we have here. It is kind of crazy to think that this is it. So cable we'll place right here, and then we'll have a storage bus that's going to go on the bottom, just like so. The crafting terminal will go on the face, and then we can power this with a resonator on the back, and that will provide it power, and then the network should kick on. And this is it. We now have access, as you can see, to all of the same items that we had before. Of course, we do need to go in here and change our terminal a little bit, but this is kind of what the interface is going to look like. Now, I personally like to make my size a little bit larger, but I don't like to cover my hotbar. There is something about covering the hotbar that I'm not too fond of, but it does look like we're going to be on the tall height, which is actually perfect. And another preference of mine is I like to have it sort by numbers of items, and then have it in descending order so we see the large amount of items at the top. So that's basically it. Now I do want to do something that's a little bit sneaky here. Now I haven't made the terminal yet. We're going to go over that, I think, in a future episode, but what I can do is I can still set this up so I can access it from with our terminal that is in our inventory through the portable storage terminal. So the way I would do this is I'm just going to connect to the bottom here, and I'm going to use my interface, connect it back up, and we actually don't need a screen, but instead we can just go ahead and connect this back up by placing our omnidirectional connector on here, and we shouldn't have to change anything at all. I should be able to still access our crafting. You can see right here, this is me accessing all of that storage the same way that we were doing it, except now my main storage interface here has been switched over to Applied Energistics, making crafting so much easier, as this just handles crafting recipes, in my opinion, a lot better. And that's why the other one is definitely a kind of a more or less a early game storage. You can use it up to late game. It'll be very, very painful though if you do. This, in my opinion, is where it's at. Now, if you don't like the color of this terminal, well, you can actually change that. I'm going to go ahead and make some smart cable here and turn it into orange smart cable. And I think we have a wrench as well. Yes, a wrench right here. I can shift right click this to disconnect that. And this is based off of the color of the cable. So your terminal will change colors depending on what color cable you have connected to it. And there we have it. We now have technically an Applied Energistics system set up. Now, it's not permanent. This is definitely temporary until we start to produce more resources. But here in a minute, we should have more than enough stuff to actually get a controller up and running and start our first endeavors into Applied Energistics and automation. So now to go over here and finally check, do we have ancient debris? Oh boy, we have a lot of stuff. Oh wow, we have so many of these. Okay. But yes, we are now farming ancient debris, and we probably need to start oh, look at the runes of fire we're getting from this. Oh, that is awesome. So we can now make the pyromancer's gear because we get those runes. Oh, that is perfect. So now we know that anytime we encounter one of those towers, we definitely need to grab the guy from it. That way we can throw them in here to be able to get their runes, and this thing farms them so quickly. So yeah, I'm gonna have to upgrade my barrel. Something I want to mention, this is what you will see with Applied Energistics now, which is very nice. Notice how I am missing this ingredient, and it actually highlights the ingredient that I'm missing, which is what integrated was not doing before, which is super duper helpful. Like it's crazy how I missed it. Not actually having access to that is kind of frustrating. But now that I have it with Applied Energistics, it's going to be so much nicer. I need to go ahead and upgrade this barrel. This is just absolutely absurd. All of these spells that we're getting. And I'm going to have to make sure that we are clearing them. But I want to keep them too, because a lot of these spells can be upgraded into higher tier spells. But now with that, I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode. And hopefully you learned something new, whether it was about Applied Energistics, how to get Certus quartz, or just really anything that we covered in today's episode, especially the way we could farm ancient debris with the Drigny, which just seems so powerful. Guys, I do appreciate it. Of course, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. And if you wouldn't mind, follow me over on the Discord and over on Twitch at twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect. And guys, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Blades of Fire 2131. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and you know how it goes. As always, thanks for watching. Bye!